Okay, let's discuss the Arizona Coyotes again and why has the NHL failed in the state of Arizona? Well, we have to go back to 1979 to start this tale of woe. Now, Arizona is my second team. I supported the original Jets as a kid. I'm a Jets fan now. So, 1979 to 96. 79 is the WHA expansion draft. This is where the Oilers, the Whalers, the Nordiques, and the Jets, the surviving WHA teams, joined the NHL in an expansion draft, and they merged the leagues together. Because the WHA has collapsed on itself because they were spending money like it was going out of fashion, and teams were going bust all the time. In that expansion draft, we're going to focus on the Jets. They were asset stripped of their best players, and so for most of the 80s, they weren't a very good side. Now, they had some good seasons, and they did draft well at times with certain players, but for the most part, they struggled. Winnipeg, however, is a hockey city. We know this. Let's not debate about it. There have been some discussions this season with the current Jets about attendance issues to start the season and season ticket sales not being as good as previous seasons, but that's all down to ownership overpricing the fans and making some decisions on a corporate level that pissed off the fan base. Moving on. 1996 rolls around, the Canadian economy isn't doing very well, and two Canadian teams end up relocating. That'll be the Nordiques to Colorado, and, these guys from Winnipeg to Arizona. They were formerly called the Phoenix Coyotes, so they've rebranded themselves since actually being in Phoenix. So 96, arena issues. They're sharing with the Phoenix Suns. They end up moving to Glendale not long after, to Gila River, and the agreement between Glendale and the Coyotes is a shambles for both parties because both parties lose money. The Coyotes never made any money in Glendale. In fact, the team went bankrupt and were owned by the league for several years. The city of Glendale lost money as well, and at one point, the Coyotes weren't even paying their bills. So when Alex Maruello takes over a few years ago, they still weren't paying their bills. And so they get evicted, and now they end up at the Mullet. So they're on their third arena in the Phoenix metro area, and we're not certain to see them move out of the Mullet anytime soon. Now, there is this land auction that we discussed in the previous video, and there's a potential that they lose that. There's a 1 in 5 chance they don't win that land auction and someone else comes in and goes, I'll buy that land. So there is that risk element attached, although in 80% of cases, there's only one bidder. But something else has changed, and we discussed this in the last video, and that's the state of Utah and Salt Lake City and Ryan Smith, the owner of the Utah Jazz. Now, they have a building. It's an older arena by arena standards in the US, and it doesn't need a lick of paint here or there, but they have an NHL ready building, and there are funds available for a new NBA/NHL arena in the Salt Lake City area that the Utah State Legislature has signed off funds for, even though Ryan Smith has come out and said, well, we can pay for it privately, but we'll also may use public money. The state is really keen alongside us to get more pro sports to the state of Utah and the city of Salt Lake. They've come up and had many, many meetings and many public statements saying they're ready from next season to have a team. Now, as this situation has developed in the last week, since the leaked renderings by themselves on their own website, which was suddenly taken down, have emerged and then disappeared and then re-emerged again, Ryan Smith's come out and said, well, we can have a team. We can actually have a team. And from what I can gather looking at Canadian and US media, it's looking more and more likely. We're talking about 90% likely that on April the 18th, so in a few days' time, the NHL will announce a formal relocation to Utah. That all has to be done is signed off by the Board of Governors, which will be a formality. Now, there are some twists and turns with that. Maruello has to sell the team to the league, who will then sell it on to Ryan Smith, and then split that relocation fee with all the other owners. There's about $1 to $1.3 billion worth of cash changing hands. Now, they have stated that the NHL may return to the state of Arizona and may return to the Phoenix area should this land auction go ahead after relocation as a possibility. We also know the NHL has put up 2 separate fixture lists for next season. One where they stay in Arizona and another one where they're playing in Utah. So when that came out, it was looking a bit, this is escalating. I wouldn't be surprised if the NHL has had a lot of meetings with Ryan Smith and Alex Maruello for several months now, even before the land auction idea was raised. As soon as the Tempe deal fell through, I wouldn't be surprised, because publicly the state of Utah as a state has already voted on a Major League Baseball funding package for a new baseball stadium for Major League Baseball to get expansion or relocation. See the Oakland A's. And of course, Then they also at the same time voted in favour of releasing public funds or setting aside public funds for a new NBA/NHL arena. And the Utah Jazz do need a new arena at some point within the next 5 to 10 years at most. So Ryan Smith, deeper pockets, should I say, than Mr. Maruello. Oh yes, he has deeper pockets, he's worth more money, and he's very, very happy to even pay for the new arena himself. But we know that these funds have been set aside and that the state of Utah, alongside several ownership groups, want more pro sports in Salt Lake City. Now, we know other cities have also put their hand up and had discussions with the NHL about possible expansion. Atlanta keeps coming up, but they actually haven't got a new arena yet, although there are plans for one. Houston keeps coming up. Yes, Quebec City does get mentioned, and a lot of NHL fans would love to see another team in Canada. They haven't got an ownership group now, but they have an arena. Even Omaha, Nebraska has put their hand up and said, yeah, we could have an NHL team. Kansas City. So there's multiple options open to the NHL, but Utah and Salt Lake City and Ryan Smith have said, we can start playing from next season. That's, 4 or 5 months away. They've already said we can have a team now. We are ready now, and we have plans and agreements in place to get a new arena built in several years' time. Now let's have a look at why things have failed. Ownership and the league. The league owned the team for a while. They also signed off on ownership changes at the Coyotes. They've gone through a lot of owners. Now, Maruello's come in recent years, but they weren't paying the bills at Glendale. And even when the league owned the team, they helped sign up the league to the Glendale Arena lease agreement. So it was still costing the team money to stay in Glendale. They had the option to go back and arena share with the Phoenix Suns, and they chose not to do that. They also, when they sold the team on to the previous ownership group, the previous ownership group before Maruello takes over, that was a disaster. The team has been losing money. It has struggled to turn a profit. There has been bankruptcy, which has impacted the on-ice product and the strength of the team available to put on the ice that could be competitive. That's why they've struggled in more recent years to make the playoffs. Because when they initially actually moved down to Phoenix, they had a pretty decent side. In fact, they've actually had some pretty decent players over the years sign down in Arizona. And even recently, in the last couple of years, they've been signing some of their key players to long-term contract extensions. The other issue is the players are finding out more and more about the situation on social media than through the organisation and the league itself. And the league and the Coyotes ownership have been pretty tight-lipped about giving press statements and press releases in regards to potential relocation. Yet the Utah ownership group with Ryan Smith have been very, very public and open, saying, we're ready to go. We're having discussions. We would prefer expansion, but relocation, it's a bit cheaper for us. And they are there. And they are prepared. And they are ready. And they already own a pro sports team. That's not bad. And so there is an element of, the NHL's been discussing with Salt Lake City for some time whilst this arena issue's been going on in recent years. So you could sort of see this on the cards 2-3 years ago when it was announced that Glendale was terminating the rolling contract with the Coyotes organisation. That this was very, very likely 3 years ago that this could and is now actually happening. But a lot of the blame has to lie with the NHL. They've allowed bad ownership to stay in place. And I wouldn't even say Maruello is a decent owner, to be honest, because when he takes over, he's still not paying the bills with Glendale City for Gila River. There was a bad relationship from the get-go with the current ownership with the Phoenix politicians and cities and local authorities in the Phoenix metro area, which has hampered their time trying to get an arena in Tempe. They've had options to go to Mesa, they turned that down, and now they're looking at this land auction in the Scottsdale area, and the local mayor goes, we don't want you. Pretty much. The local mayor has raised a lot of concerns about the project and what could happen should there be any delays, the infrastructure issues, and has gone, we don't necessarily want you. Now, ironically, the mullet actually makes the organisation money. And what came out during their time in Glendale was fans wanted to have easy access to the arena, and it was badly sited, it was badly located. And Phoenix is a fast, rapidly growing city, and traffic and public transportation are issues. They're not the only team to have arena issues. I mean, Ottawa have issues with the location of their arena, and the Islanders have recently had issues with the location of their old arena, Barclays, and there was issues around the Islanders' not that long ago. And Florida, the Panthers at times in Sunrise have struggled to get fans out of onto the edge of the Everglades to go and watch the team, because it's not a conveniently sited arena. It's right out in the sticks on the edge of the suburbs. It's not in the downtown area of Miami. So other teams do have arena issues. Let's not kid ourselves. There are other teams that haven't necessarily always made money, but Arizona have consistently lost money since 1996. The one thing that Arizona does very, very well is their branding. This is the old logo, which they had for, I think, between 2002 and 2017, 2018, their old logo. They recently rebranded not that long ago, and they brought back the Kachina, and that's proven very, very popular, not only with Coyotes fans, but hockey fans and jersey collectors. Their merchandise is top-notch. I like the retro design coming back. Their marketing department realised, well, they were obviously clearly looking online at resellers and the interest around the old jerseys from the 90s to the early 2000s, and realising they're going for a lot of money, they're very desirable. How about we just bring them back? And when they did the reverse retros and they brought back the Kachina as an alternate third, it did really well, so they ended up dropping the Howling Coyote, bless him, and they brought back the Kachina, which, yeah, it's very hard to get hold of a CCM Kachina, and I don't have £600 to £1,000, which is equivalent almost in US dollars, spare just to buy the thing before shipping costs. So yes, they are very, very desirable. So that's a masterstroke they've done. Another positive, players like Austin Matthews, who is not the only player from the Arizona area to currently play in the NHL. He's just the most famous and the most successful. Without the NHL being in Arizona, we don't get Austin Matthews and the other Arizona players, basically, who've come through, born in the state, raised in the state, watched games, be there at the Coyotes or at the Roadrunners in the AHL. Without the NHL being in Arizona, we don't get players like Austin Matthews. That could be seen as a success story, and more kids, and even beer leaguers and rec players, are playing in rinks up and down the state of Arizona. So the growth of the grassroots sport in Arizona has been really, really good. There's been a benefit of having a team there, but yeah, it's been a bit of a financial money pit. Arena issues, bad ownership, but the league does have to take some responsibility. They did run the team for a while. They had options at the time and timeframes to actually sort out an arena a lot sooner that would have avoided this current mess. So, as I say, we'll see how it plays out, but it's looking more and more likely as each hour passes, they're going to Utah. Now, whether the Utah ownership group under Ryan Smith gets to keep the Coyotes name, or they have to come up with a new name, they have to do that kind of quickly, because Fanatics takes over the jersey manufacturer for next season and all the branding and the jersey design, and we don't want another Atlanta Thrashers Winnipeg Jets situation from 2011 when we come to draft day and all the Winnipeg draft picks don't have a jersey to put on. Mark Scheifele putting on a blank NHL jersey with just the shield and the grey and black colouring. That was a very rushed, botched job, even though Winnipeg were ready to go and they had the arena and they had an ownership group with deep pockets, which they still do, although admittedly playing in one of the smaller arenas in the NHL. There was no branding. There was no uniforms, no branding. And while I do love my Jets jersey, I'm not overly keen looking on it now with the logo. It's very corporate. I like some of the retro designs they brought back from the original Jets and some of their alternate thirds, but their standard logo is a bit boring. And you can see that was a quick, let's get this done for the start of the season in 2011-2012. It just looks very plain, boring, not exciting, and a bit corporate. It's just, let's get it done on Windows Paint. Let's get it done quickly, let's get something together, and they just never rebranded. So I think that the current Jets could use with a logo update, maybe go back to the old retro design or some new design, but we don't want that kind of situation where 2011, it's looking very like 2011. The NHL does not want a repeat of 2011. And that's where the NHL failed in 2011, with the whole Atlanta expansion to its demise. This is looking like that. And it's been a money pit for the NHL. The revenue sharing, Arizona's always received a huge chunk of the revenue sharing since that's been brought in as well. It's been a money pit. And unfortunately, I do feel sorry for the fans, players and support staff in the Coyotes organisation, because people will lose their team and people will lose their jobs, and not every Coyotes employee will be able to relocate to Salt Lake City. There are going to be job losses. So this does have a knock-on impact for the wider community more than just the team being relocated. So there has to be that bared in mind, but it has been a sorry state of affairs for 28 years. let's not kid ourselves. The off-ice situation has been a mess. The league does have to take some responsibility, but the initial seeds of sorrow was sown in 1979, so we have to go back 10 years before I was born. Yes, we have to go back 45 years. So there have been issues for a long time. And yeah, the league does have to take some responsibility. But there we go. A bit more of a lengthier video this time, but I would like to hear NHL fans' responses. Now, as I say, it's not often I get to wear this lovely hoodie. It's seen better days. It's on its last legs now, but it's been well loved for many, many years. I do like the Arizona merch, as I say. It's very, very desirable. They've had some great jersey designs. Even the old Howling Coyote jerseys were pretty good, but they've been let down by bad ownership and the league. But that's my thoughts on things. Thank you very much for watching. Place your thoughts in the comments section below. I'll have some more content for you guys very, very soon.